Hello everybody, welcome back to C&S Corvettes in beautiful sunny Sarasota, Florida. It's your Corvette buddy Lyle, here to talk to you about more interesting, exciting, and hopefully helpful Corvette stuff. Today we're going to talk about something that causes a little bit of confusion in the Corvette world, and that's the difference between staggered and square wheel and tire setups. We're going to get into it right now. Now, for those of you out there who actively track your cars or have different sets of wheels and tires for different uses for your Corvette, this video is probably going to be pretty remedial for you. But for those of you who don't even know what I'm talking about, a staggered setup is something that we have seen on Corvette since basically the mid-80s, where you have a different diameter or different width wheel up front than you do out back. It was that way starting in, they had some of the width staggered in the early C4s. And then when we got into like the 90s, you had the narrower wheels and stuff at the front. So that's staggered, but they were all the same diameter. Moving into the C5, C6, C7, and C8, you have smaller diameter and narrower wheels up front than you do in the rear. So staggered can mean width or wheel diameter if it's different from front to rear, just so we're clear on that definition. Now, there are definitely advantages and disadvantages to either setup. Let's first talk about the staggered setup. The staggered setup is really good for cars that are street driven. You get better traction and performance as the rear tires grip better under hard acceleration, helpful for high horsepower Corvettes. Having the narrower wheels and tires up front improves handling characteristics for street driving, because as we all know, the roads we drive on every day are not perfect. And if you have super wide wheels and tires up front and you're on a highway or a city street or whatever that has deep grooves in it or other things, the car tends to track. It tends to catch those things and follow them, which nobody wants to deal with. That's why even today, with the most aggressive C8 ZR1X, the front wheels are still narrower than the rears so that you don't have that tracking problem. A lot of people like the staggered look because it has kind of become the Corvette look, especially starting with the C5 and going on through today's models, where having the larger diameter, wider tires at the back gives it a much more muscular stance and, gives it kind of that classic Corvette look with the fatter rear tires and makes the car look more planted. Some of the limitations of a staggered setup are obviously that you can't rotate your wheels and tires front to rear. Depending on what kind of tires you have, if they are directional tires, you can't even rotate side to side. This means that even when you're paying attention to your alignment on the car and maintaining that, once every year, once every 2 years, and making sure everything is still where it's supposed to be, you're going to tend to go through tires faster because you can't change positions without actually dismounting tires and changing wheels, and most people aren't going to do that. The square setup means that you are running 4 identical wheels and tires at all 4 corners of the car. This is going to give you better cornering balance at the limit, probably harder cornering than you would do on the street. This is why the square setup is really the choice for people who are going to take their car out and drive it aggressively on a closed circuit, on a prepared surface, on a track, autocross, whatever. But this is going to be more ideal for performance setups. That's why so many people have 2 sets of wheels and tires for their Corvette if they do go to the track, because they don't want to deal with that constant tracking on surface roads, but they want the additional grip and the more neutral handling with equal contact patches front and rear on track. One of the obvious advantages is you can rotate your tires in all 4 directions, crossways, however you want to do it, assuming that you don't have directional tires, in which case you'd still have to pay some attention to that, but most of the supercar tires today aren't even directional anymore. So you can just, do the normal rotation however you wish. It's also more cost efficient because 1 tire size for all 4 corners simplifies buying and replacing, often saving money. Especially if you go to the track, you always bring an extra set of wheels and tires, at least 2 wheels and tires with you in case you have a puncture or you get a real bad flat spot from overbraking. It's nice and easy to know that whatever you've brought will fit anywhere you need it on the car. Some people really love the square look because it looks more balanced. And people who know what they're looking at from a track aspect understand, yeah, that guy knows what he's doing. It does not give that wide rear tire look, though, that has more of a hot rod feel to it. The car can look a little less aggressive from the rear. You can see that on Steve's track car because all four wheels are square. They're 18 by 10.5 all the way around, but that kind of robs the rear of the drama of having the bigger, beefier wheels and tires. This is really favored by track enthusiasts who want sharper turn-in in a car that rotates more easily. If you don't mind the car tracking a little bit and grabbing grooves in the road on surface streets, you can drive a square setup every day. But it is not, especially for a long drive where on unfamiliar roads, I would say the Staggered is going to be a better choice for less stress while you're driving. Anyway, I hope that you understand the difference. I hope I've made it clear. If you have experience with either of these setups that you'd like to comment on, please comment down below to share it with the rest of our viewers. And if you have any other additional questions, put them in the comments too. Thank you so much for watching. We've got several more videos in the pipeline this week, so stay tuned.